Hi everyone, I'm Suzanne Lively. Thank you for joining me. In today's video, I'm going to share with you all the resources we will be using for our Harlem Renaissance study for Black History Month. I'm going to start off by showing you the resources we'll be using that I would term the informative books. In homeschooling terms, these are the spines for our study. The first one is one of the Who HQ books. And this is What Was the Harlem Renaissance? And I love these books. They're very digestible and accessible for kids. And they give you all the kind of headlines and points to a period or a person. So we'll start off with that. The other book that I'm going to use as one of the spines for our study is this Harlem Stomp by LaBon Carrick-Hill. And this is a cultural history of the Harlem Renaissance. I'm really excited to have this one. It was on my list for months. And I'll just quickly read you the back because it says it best. It is a breathtaking, in-depth exploration of this fascinating era. And it includes photographs, historical documents, full-color paintings, poetry, prose, and political rhetoric. Now, what I love about it is that it does have so many different pieces in it. Now, I have to say, these books are definitely good for young kids as well up into the teen years. I mean, this is good for adults as well. We're also going to listen to this On the Shoulders of Giants, and this is by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And this is about how the Harlem Renaissance has shaped him and his life. And it has interviews and jazz music and all sorts of different things from this period. It really is a work of art. It includes so many giants, so many artists on here. I would highly recommend you explore this. You could certainly do a study with this alone for sure. I also had these on my list for a while. Now, these are two books of poetry by Nikki Grimes. And this one is Wisdom from the Harlem Renaissance, One Last Word. And this is poetry by both men and women from the Harlem Renaissance period. And this one here is called Legacy. And this is Women Poets of the Harlem Renaissance. Nikki Grimes is using what is called the golden shovel poetic form. And you take a piece of poetry like from Langston Hughes, for example, and you pick certain words or line from there. And then the poet, in this case, Nikki, has to write a poem using just those words. So definitely more challenging than a normal poem. But the way she's laid out this book, I think, is really cool. She gives you the poem from the artist, again, to follow my example, Langston Hughes. And then on the other side of the page or the next page, she also then has the poem that she's written based on a line or words from that poem. And there's many illustrations throughout. And she has used different artists throughout, which she also lists who they are in the book as well. And she also used the golden shovel format with the women poets of Harlem as well. Seriously, the artwork in here is gorgeous. We read a lot of poetry in our home, and for poetry tea time, we also read poems in our morning basket. So I don't know how much we're going to read, a couple of these a day, and we'll also do them for our Fridays poetry tea time. And when the month is finished, I do know we'll include the one about the women for sure in our morning basket, because we always do something for women's studies in our morning basket, and that will go in there. Now this is really cool. My daughter's 8, so this is perfect. This is called the Harlem Renaissance, an interactive history adventure. And this is by Alison LeSueur. And this is one of the Choose Your Own Adventures. All happening during the Harlem Renaissance. I think this is super cool. So it says 3 story paths, 46 choices, and 21 endings. Here's another book from our shelf, and this is Langston Hughes' book of poetry. And Now, we discovered Langston Hughes when we read the book, Leaving Langston. I absolutely love that book, and I want to make sure I mention it. It's the first book in a trilogy, but it's the first one that I love more than anything. It's about Langston, who moves with the Great Migration. His mom dies, and he moves to Chicago with his dad, and he ends up going to the public library where he finds shelter, and he gets inspired by Langston Hughes. He's being terribly bullied, and that is his way of escaping and understanding his experience, etc. I mention this because my daughter, as soon as she heard Langston Hughes anywhere else, she always recognizes the name and wants to read it. So this is why we ended up getting this book of poetry. One of the poems that are in this book happens to be one of the picture books that I'm going to show you. So I'm going to jump into the picture books now. The Langston Hughes poem that I mentioned is called Dream Variation. And here it is in this book with these gorgeous illustrations. Now I have to say my daughter was absolutely captivated by this. And look at this, it's beautiful. And this one is called That Is My Dream, and it's by Langston Hughes and Daniel Miers. Okay, now I'm going to share with you a stack of picture books that I picked up from our local library. I did a search, which you can certainly do at your library as well, on the Harlem Renaissance, and then I narrowed the search down into picture books. Okay, some of these we've read already and some we have not. First one is Jazz Age Josephine by Jonah Winter, illustrated by Marjorie Priceman. Now we ended up with 2 books on Josephine, and I thought that might be too much, but it isn't for this reason. This one is very lyrical. You can almost sing your way through it for sure. And it's fun and colorful. Now, this caught my daughter's attention, which was great, because she was more than happy to read the next book I picked up on Josephine Baker. And this really tells her whole story. Well, as much as you can in a picture book, but as you see, it's quite lengthy. And again, it's not as lyrical as the other one, but it is enjoyable. See, there's the beginning. Yeah, really enjoyed this. And we're not finished, actually. That's our flag. We're about a third of the way through. This will take us about 3 sittings to get through, but very enjoyable to read and informative. Yeah, definitely informative. Another little picture book that was enjoyable, Sugar Hill. And this tells about many of the places in Harlem. Yes, Harlem's historic neighborhood, Sugar Hill. Very quick read. Then we have Harlem's Little Blackbird, the story of Florence Mills. We have not read these. What I'm about to show you, we haven't read. We just picked them up. So now you know they exist. Well, if you didn't already. This is Happy Feet, Savoy. This was a really cute story. And this takes place across from the Savoy. A little boy is telling a story about his dad's shoe shine shop that was across from the Savoy. And his dad tells a story about the night he was born. Yeah, a lot of fun. I specifically did a search for singers in the Harlem Renaissance. And this book came up. And I grabbed it, but I didn't think she actually came from that period, but I've seen her on lists, so there you go. The legendary Miss Lena Horne, and apparently I have a lot to learn about Lena Horne because I really do not know much, other than I've certainly listened to her beautiful voice. All right, the next book is Harlem Hellfighters, and this is about African Americans that fought during World War I. And I'm not clear as to the affiliation with Harlem yet, but there is one. And as soon as I read this, I'll know. And as soon as you read it, you'll know. Okay, then we have The Steel Pan Man of Harlem. Again, these are books that we haven't read yet. Oh no, it's ripped. Oh, that's sad. All right, I absolutely love picture books. I don't think you're ever too old for picture books. Now we have Harlem Renaissance Party. Oh. And the last picture book is Harlem, a poem by Walter Dean Myers, pictures by Christopher Myers. All right, I have a couple more books I want to mention. This is a book we picked up last year for Black History Month. It's A Child's Introduction to African American History, the Experiences, People, and Events That Shaped Our Country. This is by Jabari Assam. It's illustrated by Lynn Gaines. And this is telling the stories from a African American's perspective. It's African Americans telling their own history. And this goes back from the time of slavery to current day. Where it celebrates many African Americans, politicians, artists, sports figures. Now, we read about 3/4 of this last year, and I thought we might finish it this year, but I've decided to focus on the Harlem Renaissance period. And because we homeschool, luckily, we're going to do Black History Month for the next few years at any rate. And you can only do so much each month. So luckily, there's always next year and the year after. It's one of the things I love about homeschooling. Now, they do have a section in here on the Harlem Renaissance, which we will review. We read it last year. I think that's where the seed was planted to do the Harlem Renaissance period this year. Now, there's also a piece in here, which brings me to the last book I did want to mention. There is a piece in here on Black Lives Matter. So there's a couple pages in this book. Oh. Sheesh. Okay. And I wanted to mention that because I did pick up another little book, one of the Who HQ books, and this is What is Black Lives Matter? Now, I wanted to mention this to you as well because I'm going to leave a link down below for a really fantastic Black Lives Matter book list. And Black Lives Matter, the movement has like 13 principles, and that has guided their choice selection. And I will leave that link below. And definitely, if you get a chance, explore the site when you're on there, because there is a week planned for February, Black History Month, very much focused on Black Lives Matter. And they have a lot of resources on there for teachers as well as homeschool teachers and parents if you want to get some of those lessons. The website is socialjusticebooks.org. Again, I will leave the link below, but definitely check it out if you want really great book lists for not only for Black History Month, but to add more diverse books into your reading on a regular basis. Please check out that list. Oh, I thought that was the last. I have a couple more book recommendations, and these are middle grade books. So we always try to read a middle grade book that goes with some of our bigger unit studies. And I'm going to mention two books, and one of them is The Harlem Charade by Natasha Tarpley. And this features 3 children that are trying to solve a mystery. One of the children's grandfather gets mugged. It turns out that they think it has something to do with the arts world and artwork that was created during the Harlem Renaissance. And also, there is a mayor in Harlem that wants to create some sort of like Harlem playland that people and tourists can come to. It's really quite ridiculous. And yeah, people from the neighborhood, of course, don't want this. This is a mystery book. And I say that because mystery books are not, I picked it up because of the Harlem Renaissance connection, but my daughter is very clear in the fact that she wants to read fantasy. And I'm not a big mystery fan either. This book confirmed it, although I love the characters. I wanted to know what happened. Anyway, she didn't want to read it, so I'm not going to finish this. There's only so much time. So we're going to focus on a book that I have coming. It'll probably arrive the day that you're watching this video. It is a fantasy book. I'm going to put a picture here. It's called The Magic in Changing Your Stars. And it's by Leah Henderson. And it's about a little boy who wants to be a dancer and go on stage. And he finds out that his grandfather had wanted to be a tap dancer, which he isn't. And somehow the child ends up going back in time to the 1930s in Harlem, where he does meet his grandfather when he was young. And Allie is trying to figure out if he helps his grandfather and turns things around, will it change the future? Will he still be able to get home? Anyway, it sounds like a lot of fun. The reviews are great, so we're looking forward to reading that. And that will be our middle grade book for our Harlem Renaissance study. Oh yes, we're also going to do a music appreciation every day where we listen to a song that was from a singer that was featured and kind of came up through the Harlem Renaissance. And if you have any playlists or anything you recommend or books you want to recommend to us, please leave it in the comments below. I would be grateful. And I hope you saw something in this video or a resource that you learned about that you can use for you and your family. And if you like this video, please hit like and be sure to subscribe to see more like it. And I will see you soon with another video.